Today I'm going to be making some homemade hot chocolate, and homemade hot chocolate requires the use of powdered sugar. But I like to make my own powdered sugar. One thing, it's about 1/3 of the cost. We're just going to use straight pure cane sugar, stick it in a food processor. We don't want to fill it up too full. We'll fill it up about halfway. We'll turn the processor on. I forgot to turn the button off, obviously. It doesn't have to process a long time. We don't have to have it super fine for hot chocolate. I've already made some over here. It's pretty fine. It's almost a dust already. You see the powder floating in the air. So I'm going to let this run probably about 2 minutes, thereabouts. And then I'm going to continue to make more of it because I use a lot of sugar, powdered sugar when I'm making this hot chocolate. But to store it, just stick it in a baggie or your sugar container, whatever you have, and it will store indefinitely as long as it stays dry. Alright, let's check this and see how close we are. As you can see from the powder floating above it, that it's already a pretty fine mist. Yes, this right here is really close to what you get out of the store as powdered sugar. If you want it to get it even finer, just process it longer. But you do it this way and it will save you tons of money. Alright, what we have here on my hand here is we got the granulated sugar that has not been processed yet. And you can kind of see it's pretty grainy. And then we have the powdered sugar over here. And as I said before, you can keep going as far as you want to go to get it down to a super fine powder or the consistency that I have here. The blade that I was using, I forgot to mention it a while ago, is just simply this blade for my food processor. Now I'm going to make several batches of this, as it keeps really well, as long as you don't get any moisture in it. I think I'll take this batch down just a little further just to show you how fine we can actually get it with the food processor. We're going to let it go just a little longer, maybe 3 minutes, 4 minutes. I'm going to stop the video just for a second. I'll start it back up in a minute. Okay, what we have here is this is the sugar that has not been put in the food processor at all. This is my first batch. It's really probably a 25% size of these granules. And then we have this one on the end that's almost a straight powder. I could keep going on this right here and get it into a powder if needed, but I do not need it to be that fine just for hot chocolate. But if you needed to get super fine, say like you're going to sprinkle on something that a dessert or something like that, and you want it super fine, just stick it in the processor just a little longer. But doing it in this food processor versus buying it, you're going to save about 50 to 60% of the cost of powdered sugar. Here's another tip that I have. When you're measuring anything, liquid or solid, never pour it directly over the food you're mixing it in. See how you over pour it sometimes? Always pour it over a second dish so that you can get it measured just right, and then put it into your mixture, whatever you're making. Same thing applies for if you're doing eggs and you need to separate the egg whites and the egg yolks. Always separate the egg whites and egg yolks in a separate container. Then once you get it separated, then pour it into the container you need it. If you're making something like a pound cake, and you have to, or a sponge cake rather, and you have to separate the yolks from the egg whites, if you get just a tiny bit of egg yolk in with egg whites, it will cause it to go flat. A lot of recipes call for you to take a powder of some sort and to sift it. I have a recipe that I use for peanut brittle that requires 1.5 tablespoons of baking soda. So if I was to put the 1.5, this is a 1 tablespoon thing, in, as you can see, it has fallen through. No sifting required whatsoever. But let's make this easier. Let's take this, put it in a little jar, and basically all we're doing is making sure it doesn't have any lumps. Take your spoon and just press it around a couple times. That's what sifting is for, is just to make sure that there's no lumps. No need to get the big old sifter out and have to work it back and forth. Just flatten it out, make sure there's no lumps.